Troublesome times I hear, filling men's hearts with fear. Freedom we all hold dear, now is at stake. Humble your heart to God, save from the chastening rod. Seek the way pilgrims trod, Christians away. My Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon. Many will meet their doom. Trumpets will sound.
Thanks for sharing your time with us today. We're going to have a great show today, and it's our old friend, Buck Dozier's here. And Buck, we're glad to have you back.
Old friend.
Old friend. Last time you was here, we was going to talk about the fairgrounds, and we got talking about families. And today we're not going to talk about families. I don't think that'll happen. But we want to talk about the fairgrounds, and I'm proud you're here. You are a friend of this ministry. You're chairman of the board. You are a friend of Nashville. You love Nashville, don't you?
Well, I've been here all my life, and it's a great city, on the move right now.
It really is. How long have you been at the fairgrounds?
I'll be starting my 7th year in
Really?
March. Mm-hmm.
How's that going?
Well, it's going well. You know, it's been controversial for some time. When I went out there, I didn't realize all that was going to take place. But we'll give the people who are listening an update, I think, of exactly where it is right now and where it's going.
What is the controversy? I know that there was two sides, and there was a whole big deal out of the Nashville government, and people wanting to get rid of the fairgrounds, people wanting to keep the fairgrounds, people wanting to keep the fairgrounds, outnumbered the people wanting to get rid of the fairgrounds. Where is all that now?
Well, I think originally there was concern about the fairgrounds losing money, and especially the state fair was losing some money there. The state fair had fallen into some bad times, I think. It needed some attention, needed some security, it needed cleanliness, it needed a family type atmosphere. I had it 2 years, and really only 1 year, and I think we turned that around at that time.
You did.
And was going in the right direction, but the city decided that it was necessary to get rid of that, and then eventually the grounds. I don't know what the intent was to do with the grounds at that time. What was not understood at the time was how much the people of Nashville loved their fairgrounds, and historically racing, Fair Park, all the other things that went on there. The people of Nashville spoke very loudly, and then eventually had a referendum, and I think 70-some-odd% said we want to keep the fairgrounds. Now, where it is today is that there's been a legal opinion which came out just recently that nobody can do anything with that ground out there until you go to the people with a referendum. So any change of use out there, other than what we're doing, you can improve the place, of course. At the same time, there's a master plan that has come back. It was authorized by the Metro Council, has come back offering about 5 or 6 different scenarios. One, do nothing, which is not really an option in my judgment. Number 2, to tear it down and rebuild it with a racetrack, tear it down and rebuild it without a racetrack, move it to another site in Davidson County with a racetrack, move it somewhere else in Davidson County with a racetrack. And then the last one is just tear it down and make it mixed use, apartments, places for people to shop and so forth. It's in the Metro Council's hands right now. They have it. They're scheduled to have another meeting about it to decide what the future of it is.
So there are still people that's saying tear it down and make it something other than where our history is.
Well, there's not a lot of movement for that right now.
I wouldn't think so.
No, there's not.
That 70% vote is not going to buy into that.
No, that's true, and I think it'd be very difficult to do anything other than either improve the place, which in my judgment, it has to be improved. The business model out there needs to change. It's really not a fairgrounds. It is really an expo center, and I think this is where most people miss it. I missed it, and I was in the Metro Council a number of times. I missed it. It took me about literally 3 days to be on the property out there to realize this is an expo center, home of the Tennessee State Fair. And sentimentally, we call it that, the 117 acres out there, but it's really an expo center. The Tennessee State Fair is a 10-day event, but we're doing something every weekend. I mean, we just had the Christmas Village out there, and probably 30,000 of our women in surrounding counties,
3
buses
men.
and 5 men who were all scared to death to be in the building. And I've learned not to go at certain times myself. And so, and you know, the lawn and garden show, and of course the flea market. The flea market is just huge.
Where is the flea market rate in the nation as large flea market?
Last time I think we were number 6. In the October flea market, which is the largest flea market, we had 2,000 some odd booths with 900 vendors, and that was always our largest. September's large, November's large too, because Thanksgiving, Christmas, everybody's preparing. In fact, well, when this airs, I don't think it is this week, but I'm not sure it'll be the same week this airs.
That is such a drawing. I've been on the Interstate 65 northbound on Saturday morning early, and the vendors are lined up all the way back down Wedgewood, up on the entrance ramp, and down 65.
Yeah, the vendors and also the people who come, they want to get there early. Every building, 8 buildings, all the sheds, 4 sheds, and all the outside, all around the buildings are taken up by vendors with their. I don't know of anything you probably can't find there. A lot of older stuff, old is new, antiques and trinkets of all kinds. You can find it at the flea market.
We had a booth out there for a while. The Inner City Ministry did. At our our thrift store had a booth out there, and the staff was great to work with. They answered your questions. They gave you the answers, got you moved around where you need to be. They tried to help you, and people out there just selling stuff that I would. So I'd have carried it started to live a long time ago, and they're out there selling it. So it's good for the city of Nashville. It's a good thing. I have relatives that live as far away as Birmingham that come to that flea market.
They do, and the buses for Christmas Village were huge coming in there for outside counties and sometimes other states.
You talk a lot about the history of the fairground. What is the history, the significant history?
Well, let me give you a couple of highlights. We could talk forever on it. The first fair was held around the mid-1800s. Actually around West End and Murphy Road was where the first fair was held.
Right?
It was in Nashville. Eventually moved out to around the late 1800s, early 1900s to the state fairgrounds where we are now. That land was owned by Colonel Raines. He was given that because he fought in the Revolutionary War, and Raines Avenue, which runs right into it, that's named after him, and that property was his. The grounds was used primarily as a racetrack. At one time there were about 7 racetracks in Nashville. Cumberland Park was the name of the racetrack.
Was it a horse track?
It was a horse track and a harness racing horse track. One of the famous horses, John Henry, is buried around the 3rd turn of the speedway out there. He was such a famous horse. Abel Harriman, who was I think eventually one of our ambassadors or Secretary of State or whatever. I think his family owned that race. When the horse died, there was a huge funeral, and the story is so great on that. They all came here, and he was the Secretariat of harness racing at the time. Jesse James, in the late 1800s, his brother Frank James won his China Poland hog, won first place at the fair. We're not sure whether Frank told the judges that Jesse was his brother or not, but he won first place, and the first night airplane ride in the history of the world was done on those grounds. He flew about 500 feet for, I think they said, about 20 minutes. He actually had a lantern on the bottom of the plane, which was the first airplane ride, and the world speed record for cars at 53.68 miles per hour was also done out there on the track. It was a harness racing track, dirt, became a dirt track for racing, and then eventually paved. And of course the NASCAR people, they had 2 NASCAR races out there, Elliott, Waltrip, all of them, you name it. They can tell you the list of people who
I met Earnhardt
there.
I didn't know who he was at the time, but and he wasn't popular then, that was way back. But I walked up to him and was talking to him, and he just took off and talked to me like he knew me as his next door neighbor.
Well, the racetrack was supposed to be the Bristol Speedway. The Bristol Speedway, actually, this racetrack here in Nashville is bigger than the Bristol Speedway, where they hold 2 major NASCAR races. That's a half-mile track. Ours is a 5/8 track. Actually, this was supposed to be the Bristol Speedway, and I'm not going to get into why some bad politics and some other things happened that caused NASCAR to get out of here. But they left Nashville and have not returned at this point.
They took a lot of money with them when they left, too.
I took a lot of money. The fairgrounds had a real good thing going at one time. NASCAR and what they call CMA, what is it downtown now, the big music thing, Fanfare was what it was called.
Fanfare was there.
Fanfare was there, and that was their cash cow. And after they lost that in NASCAR, then they began to have financial problems. And if I can catch you up briefly on that, when I got there, they began losing money. They had a surplus of about $8 million. They spent $6 million before I got there on sprinklers and repairs of certain things required. And then they let the fair go down, and so they weren't making a lot of money there. Of course, rain determines a lot, weather determines a lot whether you have a good fair. Not the quality of the fair, but the attendance.
The fair before you came was not family friendly.
It was not.
Gang type stuff and stuff going on.
We stopped that immediately.
And you stopped that, and you had 2 years. I know the last year you had it rained every day.
8.5 days of severe, rain.
It was terrible timing, and it just really bothered me that they canceled it and took it away from you at that time, because you had the fair family friendly, you had it safe, and it was clean, and you had it moving in a way that Nashville could have really benefited from that. And when I say that, my families could have benefited from that, because my families can't go to Orlando, to Disney World.
Right.
And they can go to the fair. And I really felt like we lost something when they took that away from you.
Well, and it's struggling a little bit. They're trying to, there's a private 501c3 that's got it now, and they're struggling with keeping it together and getting some money. They need, actually, the state has a lot to do with the state fair now.
Could that come back to you at some point?
Well, that's a political decision more than any other thing. It could. They could make the decision. The state would have to agree to, or the 501c3 would have to agree to give it back. The city would then have to agree to take it back. So there's a lot of business, political aspects of that.
Because that was really what our city needed. It was, I'm all for the convention center. I love what we got, but we still need that level that the fairground offers.
Well, all the other events we do, beside the flea market and the gun shows, the bird shows, dog shows, whatever, and we do a lot. We're doing 5Ks now, running events. We're doing, we just picked up a new barbecue festival this week for next year, and we're doing all kinds of things out there. And really, there is no other place for these events to go. They cannot afford any of the other kind of venues in Nashville just because of the type shows they are. And I would hope Nashville would not lose the opportunity to keep those shows.
We need those shows. Our city needs those shows, and our family needs those shows. Not everybody here can go the high dollar route. This is something, and those are the kind of events families can go over and walk around and spend the time together. We're back to the family. When a city or a community or a nation, when it starts to not build off of its families, it starts down that slippery slope of destruction, because, man, families is where it's at. And if you take care of your families will take care of you.
You know, I believe that.
I know that. We're not going to talk about families today, but leaders have got to be sensitive to families, and our country's got to be sensitive to families.
Well, they use the term out there a lot. We don't use it, but some people call the fairgrounds the poor man's convention center. I like it and I don't like it, because it's a cross-section of Nashville that comes out there. The flea market is a cross-section of Nashville, and that's once a month. And the Christmas Village, Lawn and Garden, all of those, it's not, but it is affordable.
It is.
We only charge $5 parking. That's cheap. You can't find it, other than the zoo, I think, charges $5. We're the cheapest in town when it comes to parking.
When we have our catfish dinner out there. But in what you're talking about, it's so booked. We have to stay on top of getting that reservation in, because if we don't, we lose. Somebody else comes along.
Well, it's getting worse. The black cloud that followed me around for about 3 or 4 years now, where they thought we were closing 3 different times, and vendors couldn't book way ahead, years ahead.
Right.
And so we began to lose the business. The business is coming back. We're picking it up, and it's the cloud's still there. It's not a black cloud, but it's a gray cloud. But it's getting thinner all the time, with people realizing now it looks like we're going to be there.
Well, since you have to have the referendum to move it, it's going to be there.
Well, we've got to do something with it. We can throw some money in there, and we're going to be asking for a subsidy this year for the first time, based upon the fact that our revenue, our surplus fund is depleted because we don't have the fanfare and we don't have NASCAR anymore. But the business model can change out there to where that place can make money. One of the things that the consultants said, and I already had come to that conclusion, if we had an arena seating 5,000 or 6,000 people where we could do horse shows, and the horse show business is begging to come to Nashville, Tennessee, and goat shows, sheep shows, and the consultants said animals would keep you in the black, and I firmly believe that. I also believe that it's a good place for the farmers market. I can't get everybody to agree with me on that, but I think it makes sense. The amount of synergy that we do out there with all the events that we do, you put the farmers market out there, and perhaps with a daily flea market of quality stuff. That doesn't mean we don't do one every month,
yes.
But the quality stuff, I think it would be a winner.
If you told me one time you had a dream for the fairgrounds, and that's where you got organizations come in and build buildings, is that still a possibility?
Well, one of the ways you pay for all this, it wouldn't necessarily have to be just bond money and the taxpayers footing at that. There's sponsorships, there is branding of names. We can name the building, we can name the, somebody wanted to build some barns for the livestock and so forth, we can name those buildings after them. Companies that could come in and do the same thing. So there's a lot of ways to pay for what would go on out there beside just taxpayers.
The location is good for fairgrounds, except if you set it up right. I believe that the right designer came in there and got a hold to it with the hill and the banks and so forth. You can make that play for you instead of work against you.
Well, the topography is not conducive to a lot of people, but I'll tell you, what the consultants did in the master plan, I really like one of their plans. It's a great setup, and it's new buildings. For instance, we lost the dinosaur show, which went to contiguous county, because we couldn't get the dinosaur models through our doors. Our doors were built for the 50s and 60s, and not built for now when you got these new shows coming in, boats, huge boats. We do boat shows, but can't do some of them because of the tight buildings. Personally, I think it needs to be torn down and rebuilt and done properly with the proper heating and air conditioning, the new modern
That'll
stuff.
save you a fortune.
Oh, because our building and our doors stay open all the time, so you can imagine, because vendors are taking stuff in and out and setting up, tearing down.
And it is, but it's a good location, the synergy of the town. See, if you can
Location,
get the right,
location.
If you can get the right activities out there, so when people are in at the convention center, Daddy comes to the convention center, Mama and the kids come out there for activities.
I believe that it should be a destination. I think it's one of those places that when you come to Nashville, you got to go see. You know, I don't mind them taking busloads up to Jack Daniels. That's what they want to do. But why not have something in Nashville?
One day they stay in Nashville.
Yeah, you got to go out there and see it, and you can eat. There'll be restaurants. There'll be all kinds of things for the kids to do. There'll be all kinds of things for shopping and so forth. There's some great ideas that have come forth for us and to us out there. I think with some imagination, that 117 acres could be a real destination.
What is it? Is it making money now, or you?
We're losing a little money. Flea market makes money, and we're losing money on what we charge the state fair at this point when they lease the property. We're still losing money on corporate sales, but that has to do more with buildings and the type of buildings we have. But we're seeing revenues are increasing because people now saying you're going to be there, and if I can get a marketing person who can go out and sell it. I've got a great new food vendor out there. D&D has come out there to be our new food vendor, and they have contacts, and they're really enthusiastic about you know, bring in shows out there that they've been involved in.
You say you think you got a barbecue cook-off thing coming?
We got a barbecue thing. I'll give you the date and make sure you're there.
That'll be good to do. What's it going to cost to renovate the whole thing?
Well, the consultants in one of the plans was 120 some odd million, 130 some odd millions without with a racetrack, 148 I think if you take it off property. Personally, I think that's too high. We don't need Taj Mahal buildings. We need functional buildings. We need, and you can build those for a lot less, I think, than what they said. But that was what they said. But you can build it less than that.
If we go that route, and with the racetrack, now the racetrack, if you don't have a racetrack out there, you're going to get some heat in this town.
Well, that's true, and for all of those who love racing, and I like racing, and Mr. Formosa has done a incredible job in the last 3 years of stabilizing it and bringing in some people out there and putting on a pretty good show. The problem with racing is going to be the racetrack is aging, and eventually I think it's going to need some major repairs. To bring NASCAR in, it would have to have some new barriers and some new walls and so forth. So somebody's going to have to spend a lot of money. Of course, a promoter is going to say, I need a 15, 20, 25, 30-year lease. You give me that, and I'll put some money in it, and we'll see what we can make. For all those, I want to, I guess, caution for everyone who loves racing and loves the racetrack out there. The bottom line for racing to continue out there is going to be the bottom line. Can somebody make it? Can somebody make it? And in racing is competing against itself. When Mr. Formosa races on Saturday night, they're racing on TV on Saturday night. If you notice on the big races on TV, they're not filling the stands at all. And most all of them, probably Daytona does it, but most of them are not. So racing has got the cost of racing, the cars and so forth is huge now. So even all those who love racing, they're going to have to realize that there is a bottom line question eventually for not the city, but for a promoter to make money.
Racing put me out of business of watching racing when they started making all the changes. And I'm not a person I'm not opposed to change, but when you started bringing teams in, and one team's got 3 cars on the track, yeah. And that their management, back when they were running it in the 60s and 70s, and Petty and Earnhardt and all that. Well, Fords was running Fords and Chevrolets was running Chevrolet, and you could tell them apart. Yeah. Of course, that was a golden era in this country then, because gas was 25, 35 cents a gallon. But that was fun to watch. And now it's, you know, if you don't know the driver, if you're not connected to the driver, it's just not interesting.
Well, you know, we had a racetrack that failed up in Gladeville. And,
I know.
My son was the PR director there from ground up, and of course they thought they were going to get the big race. Beautiful setting up there, beautiful racetrack, but it just didn't work.
And NASCAR, why come here when they got other markets that they need to drop into?
Well, they were looking, one time when I first got to Fairgrounds, they were looking west to move their tracks. They had so many in this area of the country, and they ran out, they didn't have dates. So there's a whole lot of different variables here to know whether, and the consultants did a good job, I think, of telling us the size of our track, the number of people, and where we are ranked, and it's a pretty good analysis of where we are with our track.
I don't watch racing anymore after Adam Petty got killed, yeah. And that just sort of turned me off to it. But I was up at Beach Bend, and Sandra and I was up there by ourselves, and we was walking around on a night, and they cranked up, and it was just like a magnet. It pulled me right in the stands, but they was running old cars. You could tell what they was running. You could recognize it as a car. And I sat there and watched them for 30 minutes, and man, it brought me back. I saw my first figure-8 race at the fairgrounds. Yeah. Those boys are crazy.
Well, racing was it back in those days.
It was.
There was no Predators, no Titans, and a whole lot of other things. So back in those days, racing was a big deal. And
racing has really got competition now and they're going to move the baseball. They're talking about moving the baseball downtown. Nashville's becoming a sports city. But we got 3 minutes. What do you want to say about the fairgrounds? We haven't talked about the family. You told me we wouldn't be able to do this, and we've made it all the way through.
Well, I think it's a wonderful place for families to come. It's safe. We always have protection there, not only medical, but we have police officers and everybody else. So we really don't have any kind of problems that way. I think it's still a great place, and I think it needs to be redone, rebuilt, and done right, and put the right kind of facilities. It was wonderful at one time, but this is the 2000 era, and so it's time that Nashville, and in my judgment, Nashville needs a facility for these type of events, plus the fact there's so many other things we could bring in to Nashville if we had the right facility.
And it needs to be done in Nashville style, because Nashville style is first class.
Well, it is, and again, as you said, with the new convention center coming in, all these people coming in from outside, they want places to go. The wives come in with the delegates a lot of times, and husbands, and they need a place to go. And you know, you can walk down 2nd Avenue and Broad Street, and that's fine, but that doesn't take too long to do that.
That's right.
So there's other places to go.
Need a choice. Inner City Ministry, you're the chairman of the board. I appreciate that. You're more important to us than you realize you are.
Well, it's a blessing. I don't know. I'd like to do more, and when I retire someday, I'll do more for you. But it's a great ministry, and we're in a great spot of having this wonderful new building to do ministry like I know you've dreamed about.
This is going to be something that's going to be good for Nashville.
It really
When
will.
we had our last Conquerors luncheon, the mayor came, and everybody came. It was a great thing. And when it was over, Larry Cantrell said, "This wasn't about inner city ministry. This was about Nashville."
Nashville Inner City Ministry works.
It does. We're touching people's lives, and we're going to touch a lot more lives. And we're going to give our kids a place of hope. And if you want to tune in to get on our website and look up Inner City Ministry, you'll see a picture of it. But we got a building coming in 2013. Sometime in 2014, we'll move into what's a new home. And because of people like Buck and so many people in this city, it's going to make this thing possible for us. Our children in the inner city are going to have a safe place to come. It's going to be family-centered. We're going to teach families how to be family, what God wants from the family. And Buck, it's going to be great. I want to wish you well at the fairgrounds. I appreciate all you're doing there. Try to get back in charge of that state fair so we can have us a good fair. It needs help. And but I appreciate all you're doing out there.
Thank you. It's a pleasure.
It's good to have people like Buck in our city. It's good to have you in our city. And I want to invite you to come and be with us at the Inner City Church and let your family be a part of our family, and let's grow together. God bless. Thanks for tuning in.
Troublesome times are here, feeling in touch with fear. Freedom we all hold dear, now is that day. Humble your heart to God, save from the chastening rod. Seek the way pilgrims trod, Christians away. My Jesus is coming soon, morning or night or noon. Many will meet their doom. Trumpets will sound, and all of the dead shall rise. Righteous me in the skies. I'm going where no one dies, heavenward bound. Well, troubles will soon be o'er, happy forevermore. When we meet on that shore, free from all care. Rising up in the skies, telling this world goodbye.